He slapped me in front of everyone, his co-stars, the cameras, the flashing lights that caught every second of my humiliation. The sound of his hand striking my cheek wasn't just loud, it was final. In that instant, I knew something inside me had died. The man who once promised to protect me from the world had just chosen to destroy me for the sake of his lover's honor. And what he didn't know, what no one knew, was that I held a secret powerful enough to end his perfect little world. It all began long before that night. Armin and I were a dream team, on screen and off. Our chemistry wasn't something directors could fake or writers could script. It was real, raw, and magical. We started together, struggling actors who shared a single room, one cup of noodles, and the same stubborn dream, to make it big. We laughed, cried, and fought for roles that barely paid the rent. But through it all, we had each other. And then came the success we had once prayed for. The film that changed everything. Overnight, Armin became a superstar, and I became the woman every girl wanted to be, his partner, his muse, his equal. Or so I thought. Fame has a way of twisting people, and slowly, the man I loved started slipping through my fingers. The more attention he got, the more I faded into the background of his life. That's when she entered the picture, Raina. The new actress on the block, young, breathtaking, and dangerously ambitious. I remember the first day she walked into our set, her smile too sweet to be real, her eyes filled with something I couldn't name then, hunger. I was the one who welcomed her. I showed her around, introduced her to everyone, even told Armin to help her with her lines. I didn't see it happening, not at first. The long rehearsals, the quiet dinners that no longer included me, the sudden defensiveness whenever I asked where he'd been. Then one day, I walked into the makeup room and found her sitting in his chair, laughing at something on his phone. My stomach twisted, but I said nothing. I told myself it was harmless, that Armin would never betray me. We'd come too far together. But deep down, I think I already knew, the man who once held my hand during every storm was now building a future with someone else. The night of the award ceremony was supposed to be mine too. We had both been nominated, him for Best Actor, me for Best Actress. I wore the gown he'd chosen for me, silver silk that shimmered under the lights. I stood beside him on the red carpet, smiling for cameras that used to love us as a pair. But his eyes weren't on me anymore. They followed her instead. When they announced her name instead of mine, the world clapped. She walked up the stage, her glittering gown brushing against the floor, and I felt my heart sink as she took the mic. Her voice trembled with fake humility as she said, "This award belongs to the man who believed in me when no one else did, Armin." The crowd erupted, cameras flashed. And Armin smiled at her. Not the polite smile of a colleague, the kind of smile that once made me believe I was the luckiest woman alive. I stood there, frozen, hearing the whispers, seeing the subtle glances from the audience who already knew what I was refusing to see. After the ceremony, I found him backstage. He was surrounded by people congratulating him, Raina beside him like a jewel. When the crowd thinned, I grabbed his arm. "We need to talk," I said, my voice sharp. He frowned. "Not now, Mira. This isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," I hissed. "Tell me it's not true. Tell me you're not with her." He sighed, exasperated. "You're overreacting again. You always do this when someone else shines." His words sliced through me. "Someone else? She's not just someone, Armin. She's innocent," he interrupted, his voice rising. "Innocent?" I let out a bitter laugh. "You call her innocent after everything?" Before I could finish, his hand flew across my face. A sharp crack echoed in the room. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Everyone nearby turned. Raina gasped and rushed toward him, clutching his arm as if he were the one in pain. My cheek burned, but my chest burned more. The betrayal, the shame, the disbelief, it all mixed into something dark. When the video aired, his smile vanished from every billboard overnight. The man who once boasted that no one could touch his fame now sat watching his own downfall play out on every channel. His face, the same one people once worshipped, was now the face of betrayal, deceit, and humiliation. He had slapped me to defend his lover's honor, but in doing so, he'd handed me all the power I needed to destroy everything he had built. And I did it with nothing but the truth. It started early that morning. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The journalist I'd worked with, the one who promised to handle my story with precision, had sent me a single message: "It's out." The world woke up to chaos. Reina's perfect, carefully crafted image shattered like glass. The headlines screamed, "Rising star Reina Sharma caught in identity scandal." Every network was replaying clips, secret recordings of her mocking producers, laughing about manipulating directors, and bragging about how she stole Armin from the queen herself. Those words hit hard, not because of the cruelty behind them, but because I remembered that night clearly, the night I introduced her to Armin, naive and proud of how far we had come. Now, the same industry that once bowed to her turned against her. Brands withdrew endorsements. Fans filled her social media with outrage. The award she'd won, the one she had stolen, was now the symbol of everything false about her. But what truly broke the internet was the second leak, the audio clip of Armin and her talking privately. His voice was unmistakable, calm and arrogant. Greater than, "No one will find out. We'll bury it. Mira's too emotional. She won't risk her career." Then her laughter followed, cold and cruel. Greater than, "You're right. She's too busy crying over that slap to fight back." The audio spread like wildfire. Within hours, reporters camped outside their homes. Directors publicly condemned them. The film they were working on, a multi-million-dollar project, was halted indefinitely. I watched it all unfold from my small apartment, curled up on the couch with a cup of coffee in my hands. The same people who had once called me difficult for standing up to him were now calling me brave. The irony wasn't lost on me. By afternoon, I received a knock at my door. I knew before opening who it was. Armin. He stood there, unshaven, eyes bloodshot, his once perfect posture slouched with defeat. For a second, I almost didn't recognize him. The star who once commanded stages now looked like a ghost of himself. "Mira," he whispered, his voice cracked. "Please, can we talk?" I stepped aside, silent. He walked in like a man entering his own grave. "You ruined me," he said finally, his tone filled with disbelief rather than anger. "Everything's gone. My career, my reputation, everything." I met his gaze steadily. "No, Armin, you ruined yourself. I just stopped protecting your lies." He flinched. "You don't understand. She blackmailed me. I didn't want to be involved in her mess." I laughed bitterly. "Blackmailed? Is that what you tell yourself to sleep at night? Because I remember you calling her innocent while you slapped me for questioning your affair." He looked down, his jaw tightening. "I made a mistake. A terrible one. I thought she cared about me. She cared about what you could give her," I said coldly. "And you cared about being adored. You both got what you wanted, until the truth showed up." He sank into the chair, rubbing his face with shaking hands. "What do I do now?" I wanted to say I didn't care. I wanted to throw every ounce of his cruelty back at him. But instead, I said quietly, "Start by learning what humility feels like. You once said my emotions made me weak. Turns out, they made me human, and you forgot how to be one." He looked up at me then, eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in years, shame. Real, heavy shame. "I never wanted to hurt you," he whispered. "Then why did you?" He had no answer, only silence. When he finally left, I closed the door gently, not out of forgiveness, but out of finality. The chapter that had haunted me for so long was finally over. The days that followed were strange. Reporters wanted interviews, producers offered comeback roles, and messages of support flooded in from people I hadn't heard from in years. I stayed quiet. I didn't want revenge to define me. I wanted peace. Months passed before I returned to the public eye. This time, not as an actress, but as a storyteller. I started writing scripts based on the realities behind the glamour, the pain hidden under applause. One of my stories, about a woman betrayed by fame and love, caught the attention of a producer. He offered to turn it into a film. At first, I hesitated. Reliving the pain felt impossible. But then I realized, it wasn't about pain anymore. It was about truth, and truth deserves to be seen. The film released a year later. Audiences wept, cheered, and stood in silence as the final scene played, the one where the betrayed woman, standing on stage, says, "Greater than, sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't destroying someone, it's standing tall while they drown in the mess they made." That line hit home for thousands, but for me, it was more than a script. It was closure. After the premiere, as I stood outside the theater, flashes surrounded me again. Reporters shouted my name, asking how it felt to be back. I smiled for the cameras, the same way I once had beside Armin, but this time, the smile was real. I wasn't pretending anymore. One reporter asked, "What would you say to Armin if you saw him today?" I paused for a long moment before answering softly, "Thank you for breaking me, because that's how I learned to rebuild stronger." Somewhere in that crowd, I thought I saw him, standing in the shadows, watching, his eyes full of regret. But I didn't walk toward him. I didn't need to. My silence was louder than any confrontation could ever be. When I got home that night, I stood before the mirror and touched the same cheek he had slapped months ago. The pain was gone, only strength remained. For years, I thought revenge was about making someone pay. But it wasn't. It was about reclaiming my story, my dignity, my voice. And I had done that, not with rage, but with truth. I looked out at the night sky and whispered to myself, "You thought you ended me, Armin. But you only helped me begin." And with that, I turned off the lights, letting the calm darkness surround me, no longer a victim of betrayal, but the author of my own ending.